Welcome, Joneen.
Thank you, Kimberly. It's so nice to be with you.
It's a treat to have you, and congratulations on this new book, Relationship Essentials: Skills to Feel Heard, Fight Fair, and Set Boundaries in All Areas of Your Life.
Thank you. It was quite a labor of love.
Books they're like babies, aren't they?
They're birthing to work with your daughter, who is such an amazing person. It was magical to work with her.
So, what led the two of you to come together and be like, let's write a relationship book?
Well, actually, I'm the president founder of the Center for Relationship Education, and Lauren is going to follow in my footsteps in a couple of years. And she is one of the leadership team members. And we do that for a living. That is our job, to teach these research aligned relationship skills. And when I go to audiences or speak at conventions, I ask the audience, how many of you have had a relationship education? Really, nobody even knows what it is. And there's a whole compendium of data on what makes relationships work and what makes relationships fail. And so we took that data from different university settings and research journals, and we operationalized it. And what I mean by operationalizing it, it's kind of like what we used to think, that we knew how to wash our hands until COVID. And then the CDC thought we didn't, and we had to operationalize. First you do this, then you do this, then you wait, then you rinse your hands for 20 seconds singing happy birthday. And they spent millions of dollars putting up posters to teach us how to wash our hands. Well, we do that with relationships. We break pieces apart, we make it simple. They're actual tools in your toolbox. We actually use tools like you would find at Home Depot. So all people are engaged. Like, this is an actual tool that you can use to reduce escalation, to develop closeness, to develop attachment. And it's all kinds of relationships. It's not just romance. It's relationships with yourself, relationships with your family, relationships with your friends, your colleagues in the workplace, and also romance. But it's all these skills are part of how you operate in the world. And what we know about, I'm a nurse by trade. So my background is, I was a military nurse, and in ICU, CCU, I was very high energy, chronic illness, acute illness, very high energy dynamic. And I really wanted to get into the prevention world. And because it's so much better if you could prevent all these things from happening in the first place. And I was amazed at, when you have healthy relationships and pro-social connectedness, you're healthier. Imagine that. You're healthier. Stanford has a study on healthy relationships and the connection to health. Harvard has a 17-year happiness study. You can see on TED Talk. You can just Google Harvard happiness study, TED Talk. And for 75 years, they've been studying happiness. What is the secret to happiness and health? Close social relationships, period. That's what the researchers tell us. And so this, from a nursing standpoint, from a medical professional standpoint, this is right up my alley. This is right in my wheelhouse. And we see right now, with mental health being such a issue with young people and old people alike, and first responders, and all of us being so stressed, we actually were approached by a publishing company to do this during the COVID isolation mechanism. And the reason, and just to credit Lauren, my co-author, my daughter, she actually wrote a book a few years ago. Her first book was on step families, and it was called In My Shoes: Step Families and Blended Families from a adult child's perspective, because she went through it. And also, just a long answer to a short question, I am passionate about this because into a 20-year marriage with 4 teenagers, my husband decided to leave and threw a grenade in the middle of our living room and blew up our family. And I wanted to know what happened. I wanted to know, oh my gosh, how does this happen to a family that seems to be operating okay? I mean, it wasn't hearts and flowers and unicorns and rainbows, but it wasn't adversarial. It was just there, and then it wasn't. So that's one of the reasons, is because of Lauren's first book. It was because of my experience as someone who does this for a living, and then my family blows up, right? And the passion from health and wellness, and those 3 things. That's what compelled us to write this.
Gotcha. And I think you raise a really good point. I mean, we are not taught how to have relationships. I mean, you do not learn that in school, but we learn trigonometry, right? And you're just like, some of these things are such important skills. Oh my gosh. And so let's start with the 3 C's of communication. So let's start there. What are they and why are they so important?
Well, the first one is content, and what is it that you want to say, and clarity. Being clear about what you want to content and context. And the context, like for instance, don't start a heavy conversation when everybody's tired. This is so typical in romantic relationships or marriages, where all night long somebody's withholding something that's bothering them, and then they get into bed, and maybe the husband or the wife reaches over to start some romance, and somebody blows up and says, and this is what you did, this, and this is what you did. That's not the time when everybody is tired. So, like, make an appointment for these crucial conversations. Actually, there's a #1 bestseller called Crucial Conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pick the time that people are not so stressed, they're not in the middle of something, they're not distracted. You give them 15 minutes, do it in 15-minute increments, don't do it for 4 hours. So that's the 3 C's is clarity, content, and what was the third one? Context. And so those are the 3 C's. And the chapter really lays out how you think about what you're going to say. And that's not where are we going to dinner? It's not that kind of conversation. It's a conversation that is deep in your heart, that needs to be resolved. You need to have those things, be mindful of those 3 things. That's the tool.
I love it. And it's funny, over the years, I've taught mindful communication workshops, and the 3 C's that I always like to share is being clear and concise, right? And then compassionate. And so it's so interesting that you have 3 C's also, and how, varied they are. So it's so beautiful, and it's so freaking important. So we talked about, before we started recording, the importance of boundaries. And you also mentioned expectations, right? So can you talk about why boundaries are so important? They're very hard for many people to set. And then also how that ties into expectations.
Oh, it is critical. It is essential in relationships. First of all, boundaries are kind. Boundaries are kind. People think that they're rigid and they're hard. They're actually kind. They teach people how to treat you. You actually teach people how to treat you. What you accept, you teach. In other words, if you accept that somebody's going to treat you poorly, or somebody's going to bounce all over your time, or bounce all over your home, or whatever the boundary breaker is, then you're treating them you're telling them that's okay. That's okay. I'm gonna, and when I say that they're kind, I'm going to refer to a study that's in the book. The study is about education students in California when they were building new schools. They wanted to watch little ones, like preschool all the way up to maybe 2nd to 3rd grade, how they would play in the playground when there was no fence up. There was a lot of land around the school. Let's don't put the fence up. It's too much of a boundary. We want these kids to be free range kids. And where do you think the kids played? They played close to the school. They didn't really venture out into the vast land that was around the school. And 6 or 8 months later, they put up the fence. And those little kids had their nose in the fence, running, playing. Why is that? Why is that? Well, it's because there's safety in knowing where your boundary is. I remember, and this is also in the book, when we were redoing our deck. We lived in the mountains, and we were redoing our deck, and our backyard had some rock, where you could fall off the deck. It wasn't, you wouldn't hurt yourself, but it was probably a 4-foot drop. And the deck was all done. We had this new Trex wood on the deck. The only thing that wasn't done was the railings. And it was a very big deck. So we were supposed to have a July 4th barbecue, and the deck wasn't done. The railings weren't done. So I asked the kids, I have 4 children, and I asked them to come out, and they were said, Mom, I don't want to be out here. And they're normally outside all the time. And I realized that they didn't want to be out there because they felt uncomfortable knowing where the edge was, because they throw balls and they do this. And what if somebody goes back and there's no railing? You wouldn't stand in an apartment building way on a patio on a 50-foot, 30-floor apartment building with a patio with no railing. It would be unwise. That's what a boundary is. It's a guardrail. And when you tell people, I have emotional boundaries, I have physical boundaries, I have time boundaries. Lauren's an expert in that. She doesn't want to be mean, but she says, I have a hard stop at this time because she'll need to use the restroom or grab a cup of coffee for her next meeting. Mm-hmm. Or maybe she needs to prepare, or maybe she just needs to settle herself for the next. And she knows herself well enough that she just says, I have a hard stop, and here's what's going to happen if I'm going to actually just have to leave. And people honor that. They honor that. If you say it out loud, people honor it. Mm-hmm. But if you don't say it, it's not kind to them. It's not kind to you.
Right.
And I'll give you another example. I remember I have my husband was a baseball coach for many, many years. And in the world of sports, when men get together, this is a total generalization, but they tend to be vulgar at times. Okay, they tend to say things to other men that maybe they wouldn't say in a room full of women. I don't know. I'm generalizing. But when we got married, I said, I want you to know, I just don't do vulgar. I don't do vulgar. And so if you're going to play poker with your friends, I'm going to be gone. You can do your thing, but I don't want to do it in front of me. I don't want you to say these words in front of me. I'm not being prudish. I don't want to, but see, he knows he knows how to behave in front of me. And it's changed his character. He even finds it a little offensive when he's with his friends to say, hey, let's clean it up a little bit. We're not sophomores in high school anymore. You know what I'm saying? So those kind of things is, here's what I expect. And for children, oh my gosh, parenting. If you teach your children your expectations, it is so kind to your children. And do I have time to tell a story?
Sure.
This is a great story. And it's in the book. When my children, I have 4, and I had 4 in 6 years. So I had a 3, 4, and 5-year-old, and a baby. And the baby was, still in a little seat, so that they weren't crawling yet. The child wasn't crawling yet. But my dear friend, who doesn't have any children, invited me to her house for lunch. And she collects Lully crystal. And Lully crystal is very delicate. And I said, well, I have to get a sitter for the kids if I'm going to come down to have lunch with you. She said, oh, I want you to bring the kids. I haven't seen them for a while. I said, She goes, I'll put the stuff up. I'll put this. I said, no, you won't. No, you won't. Kids are naturally curious, but they're also, you have to give them expectations as a parent. And so the lunch wasn't for a month down the road. And so what I went to the store and I got each kid a little play bag, put their name on it, gave them a little 3x3 blanket that I bought at Target. I bought age appropriate toys, and I brought down a timer because I was at 1 hour, one of those timers that click 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 timer. And for a month, I said, we're going to go to Mrs. Smith's house. We're going to be doing this for an hour. Mommy's going to have lunch with her. You're not going to touch any of her stuff. I'm going to find you a place to play on your blanket. You're going to stay in your blanket. You're going to have fun. I fed them before we got there. And all the way down from the mountains to Denver to top, I was looking in the rearview mirror saying, repeat back to me what mommy expects. And I said, and if this doesn't happen, whoever gets off their blanket is going to go to the car and ruin it for everybody. But if you all stay in your blanket and you do well, we'll go to Dairy Queen and have a Frosty. So it was like an incentive. Well, we walked into Mrs. Smith's house and she said, did you drug these children? What is the deal with these kids? I've never seen anything like it. I said, it's just about expectations.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about what you expect, you get. Right. And it wasn't mean spirited on the part of the children. They just had to be able to self-regulate and be able to play in their spaces for 1 hour with their toys. And that's what mommy expected. So it's a very kind thing to do. It's a great way to raise children, to let them know your expectations. It's a great way to have a relationship in the workplace. It's a great way to have a marriage, that I know what you expect. I know, you know what I expect. And you keep going back to those. My husband, when we were dating, we wrote them down. We even had a dating journal that we wrote them down and said, here's my expectations for, what if this happens with your children? And what if this because 46% of the country is a blended family. And if it's not going to operate like, a regular family where, the children are both of yours. There's some dynamics that are pretty tricky.
Absolutely. And that's why the communication, expectation, boundaries, so important. And that leads me to my next question. Conflict resolution, right? Like, okay, so boundaries are pushed, expectations aren't met, we're not great at communication, and then a conflict arises, which totally normal. How do you encourage people to kind of like fight fair or get through these challenges?
Oh, this is a great question, Kimberly. And I can tell you that according to Dr. Scott Stanley and Howard Markman from the University of Denver, they've researched this for a very long time. It's the #1 cause of relationship dissolution, not just marriage, but family. I'm done. It's in the workplace. If you don't know how to resolve conflict that is, dear to you. First of all, why do people fight? Why do they fight? Why do they, fight about something? Because they care about it. It's deep in their personhood. And so to not hear people about what their heart is screaming for is not kind, and doesn't promote attachment and healthy relationships. So Dr. Stanley and Markman, who discovered this #1 cause of relationship dissolution, created a system called the speaker listener technique. And they gave us permission to quote them in the book. This is not the property of the Center for Relationship Education. We give them all the credit, but it is a system whereby a speaker listener, and it's first we talk about danger signs in relationship, escalation, okay, those all those kind of things that would be a danger. You could hear people, they're getting higher and higher in their voice, they're getting more and more agitated. And when that happens, when those danger signs happen, according to this system, you take a timeout. And a timeout is, it could be more than 30 minutes, less than 24 hours. but you come back to the conflict and you do one issue at a time. You don't get you don't get hysterical and you don't get historical.
Mm.
You do one issue at a time, and one person does the I message. We've all heard I messages, but a short I message about one issue. Then you let your partner paraphrase, not parrot. Parrot could be sarcastic. I heard exactly what you said, and it could be, but when you paraphrase, and then the person who said it says, yes, you got it. That is powerful for somebody to feel heard. Okay, and then there's a system. It's not problem solving. It's not even agreement. It's just being heard. The outcome that you're looking for is being heard. And so we've had, I don't know if you know much about the Center for Relationship Education, but we have marriage grants from the federal government, and we do workshops for this particular target population. For our grant is first responders, military, law enforcement, EMTs, firefighters, dispatchers, people who have very high stress marriages because their schedules are very erratic. And we do this marriage coaching, and we teach them this skill, and we actually have them practice, and we give them spaces far enough away from each other so that they can have a modicum of privacy. We put some music in the background, and we have marriage coaches. And one particular couple, the woman was crying in the dyad, and our marriage coach didn't know whether he should go over and help them because they didn't call them over. Because the thing is, call us over if you need help. But he went towards this woman and he said, what can I help you with? And she said, you don't have, this worked. I have been married to this man for 19 years. And it's the first time in my marriage I have felt heard. So that's the outcome we're looking for, is hearing somebody's heart, not necessarily problem solving or agreement. And then you can go back and forth, and there's a process by which you get to problem solving. But the first part is being heard. So that is a real skill. Now, we also train teachers all over the country, social workers, teachers, HHS professionals, case managers, how to teach this to the people they work with. Can you imagine a world where conflict was able to be resolved rather than fists and gangs and war? It would be it'd be a much more wonderful place to live, a much kinder, gentler place to live, a more humanizing place to live, to say, I hear you, I see you, I recognize you, I honor you, I respect you, by hearing your heart. That's what conflict resolution is about.
So important, right? I like the reminder too about the I statement and not parroting, but paraphrasing. So great reminder.
Yes.
And you also talk about gratitude as a relationship superpower. So tell me why gratitude is so important.
Oh my goodness, it just changes your attitude. Actually, I can refer to Viktor Frankl. He was
Yes.
he very famous. He was in the concentration camps as a Jew. Okay, and he wrote the book Searching for Significance. And there were three types of people in the concentration camps. One, they would do anything to survive. They would rat on their fellow Jews in the concentration camps. They would, they would turn their character into something that they weren't to survive. That's one. Then there was another group that would just roll over and get into a ball and just lose hope and die. And then there was another group in his book that talked about the attitude of hope and gratitude. And these are the people that survived. These are the people that said, okay, I don't have my home. I don't know where my children are, but I'm breathing. I'm breathing, and I have a morsel of bread, and I'm alive another day, and I see the sun, and I smell the air. You know what I mean? They were so attitude is everything. because it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter. All of us humans are going to face adversity somehow, whether it's an illness, whether it's an accident, whatever it is, there's something that we're going to face. And when we said in the book, it's a superpower, it just levels you to say, oh my gosh, what can I be thankful for? It's that attitude of glass half full, getting to yes, overcoming the impossible, resilience, and it recharges you. And I'll give you an actual example. And Lauren wrote about it in the book. Back in January, a year ago, January, I was in a really bad car accident, and it was, airbags went off, all the windows were shattered, glass was all in my hair. I was stunned, obviously stunned, and a gash in my face, and I was still in my seatbelt, so much so that I had a black and blue seatbelt mark on my abdomen. That's the impact. And I just sat there and thought, I'm alive. My car is like an accordion. And that attitude of gratitude it took me through a lot of different surgeries and all kinds of stuff. And I just thought, it is a superpower to just be, but I'm overcome with gratitude that I wasn't killed. Do you see what I'm saying? And it felt like a superpower to me, because it gave me energy, it gave me hope, it gave me strength, it gave me courage to get through the pain, to get through all the bruising, to get the plastic surgery that I needed to get glass out of my face. All of that stuff was, I'm so glad that we have doctors in this country that are able to do that. Wow. You see what I'm saying? So just being thankful, if somebody does something for you, those little notes, even an email, a text, I'm so grateful that you did this little menial thing, to be so thankful. It touches your heart when somebody writes you a thank you note, and we've lost it. We've lost it. We live in this place of entitlement. And what if your children thank you for making them a meal? You would your knees would buckle, and it would give you so much energy to make the next meal. Because we get so wrapped up in the mundane, but the thank you makes it magical, from mundane to magical.
So important.
And that's so important to say thank you. And please, it's just those little courtesies that make us human. I'm sure animals don't do that. It's humans that do that. And let's stay in the human space.
And thank you notes are everything.
Everything. Everything.
So I have two last questions for you. And you have a relationships essentials toolkit checklist at the end of the book. And can you just speak to the creation of that? And then I'll ask you my last question.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, you would never go to a construction site with just a screwdriver. Okay, you're building a building. And you need a screwdriver, yes, but you also need a nail hammer. You also need a flashlight. You also need a hard hat. You need all these tools. And that's why if there's 10 chapters, 10 tools, be prepared. Be prepared with all these tools. And the tools are visual, they're concrete, and they allow you to kind of manage the different construction zones of relationships. Okay, now I need this tool. Now I need this tool. Now I need this tool. And that's why we created the checklist. Make sure you have those tools in your toolbox as you go into the workplace. In fact, this is very interesting. Years ago, we were approached by a STEM school. Now, you think about a STEM school. STEM are science, technology, engineering, and math. These are high functioning young people. that are computer literate, and they actually the industry wanted these STEM kids to partner with them, and they would do like job shadowing. Well, after several months, the industry turned them back and said, no, we don't want them. We don't want them in our workplace. And the STEM organizers, the administrators of the STEM school were shocked. Why? They don't have social and emotional skills. They don't have relationship skills. We do everything here in projects. It doesn't matter how smart they are on the computer, how intelligent they are. They don't know how to relate one-on-one. So that is why this is so important. It's so important because the world is becoming more collaborative. It's because we're working in projects. Difficult things have to be done in a different way, and we have to work together. We're stronger together, as a nation, as a family, as a classroom, as a school, as a community. We're stronger together. And so this toolbox is not just for adult relationships, it's for kid relationships, it's for the workplace relationships, and it allows us to be able to move having the right tools and be effective with the right tools. And that's why we created the checklist.
Yeah, it's so clever and it's really well done. And it's just 2 pages, just nice, clear and concise.
Yes, it's
So my
operationalized. Absolutely we make it simple because simple works. We don't want to have a bunch of word salads and theoretical frameworks around relationships. That's not helpful. This is experiential. This is grab it right now and grab and go. It's a grab and go book. It's a light read with a lot of punch.
I love it. Grab and go. So my last question for you is, the name of the podcast is Tranquility du Jour. So how do you find tranquility in your everyday?
Oh, goodness. Well, that is a great question. I think number one, to be grateful, to wake up. And right now I'm on vacation. And so I'm in a place that's kind of paradise. And everywhere I look, if I go on a walk or do something, surrounding yourself with beauty. And you know what I actually am working with the Harvard Human Flourishing Consortium. And I don't know if your listeners know about the Harvard Human Flourishing Study. They should look it up. It's amazing. And there's 5 domains of human flourishing. Mm-hmm. And let me just tell you what they are. And they're all measurable. Mm-hmm. Mental and physical health, happiness and life satisfaction, meaning and purpose, character and virtue, and close social relationships. Mm-hmm. So when you ask me, how do I stay tranquil? I actually want to make sure that all those 5 domains, I'm filling up my cup. I want to have life purpose and meaning. And in my work, I feel like, I pinch myself because I love what I do, and I would do it without being paid because it's my passion to teach relationship skills and to have healthy relationships, and also building my character and virtue and doing something for the world. And that's what we teach kids. What are you doing today to help the world, to make the world a better place? It doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be tidying up a bathroom in an airport, just tidying it up a little bit, just your space for the next consumer, paying it forward. Think about others. Call people by name, because when your name is called, your brain lights up. Those are the kind of things that make me happy. And it doesn't have to be yoga or meditation or all of that. It's all of those 5 things: is meaning and purpose, character and virtue, close social relationships, happiness and life satisfaction, and mental and physical health. If I'm in that space, I'm good. Life is good.
Well, as you say that, I'm looking over at my book that I have kind of next on my reading list, Flourish by Martin Seligman, right? So all
Yes.
about positive psychology and the flourishing. So important.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
So thanks for being here with us, and congrats again on your lovely new book. And I wish you a wonderful rest of your trip.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. It was a pleasure to be with you.